What's up, everybody? This is Abhinav here. This is the first live stream of this week. Thank you for joining in. Uh, this is going to be a very special episode, probably the first of many in this format. This is going to be a weekly catch up session. What we're going to do here is we're going to talk about a few things related to the 10K designers community, which right now we're mostly organized on Telegram. If you haven't checked that out, you should check that out. Link is on the screen. We're going to get started in just a bit. I have a few things planned for this particular live stream. We're going to talk about them right now. So, I hope you all have been watching the previous live streams. We've been experimenting a little bit with the different formats that we can do. So, some of the formats we did a brainstorm together, which is brainstorming different feature ideas and trying to figure out what are some cool things we can do as a community, as a design community, right? So that was one thing we've tried. Another thing we tried was not weekly, what do I call this? Live portfolio and project reviews, where I go through your projects and I give a live review. I give you some feedback, and I talk about some things that can be improved about these. That was a very interesting episode. We covered 3 projects from people in the Telegram group. And for this episode, we're just going to keep it a little light. Hopefully, weekly catch-ups become a thing where every single week, most likely on a Monday, we're going to just catch up and talk about what are the new things that have been happening in the community, which is in the Telegram group. What are the new things happening within 10K designers? Projects you guys have shared, the new project updates for the different products under 10K designers. I'm going to talk about that in just a sec. And we're going to just keep it light with a little bit of Q&A maybe. So for those of you who haven't seen this website yet, this is something that I put together just over the weekend. This is the 10K designers homepage. For now, it's sort of like a coming soon page which talks broadly about the different projects going on. You can check that out. That's on 10kdesigners.com. So that was one of the major things that happened, which is 10K designers. If you guys remember, the real thing that this concept of 10K designers started nearly 1.5 to 2 years back with the very first YouTube video, where I talked about how there aren't enough design communities for self-learners online. Like of course you have design schools, but most of us today are self-learners, right? We're learning on the internet, we're doing freelance projects, we're doing internships, we're doing full-time jobs at startups and agencies. There needs to be a community where we can all discuss, we can learn from each other and help new designers coming into the field. So 10K Designers started as just a YouTube series. It was right here as one of the playlists. This first video, this is where the concept of 10K Designers, I just sort of introduced it, started thinking a little bit more about it. Over time, there have been a few more things that I've added to it. As it stands right now, there are 2 active projects. So we have the YouTube channel, we have the UI source, we have UI sources, which I'll show you, which is right here, uisources.com. Many of you are already using this for your projects. This is a great place to get real design inspiration for the kind of stuff that you might be designing in your projects. Booklets.io. This is something we've been talking about in the previous couple of live streams. It's been in secret beta so far, which is I've only been sharing the links in certain places, but now slowly it's opened up and now we're in public beta. This is February's beta. Hopefully this is the last public beta before the launch. There's a few more things that I want to add to it before doing a bigger launch event where I showcase this to the rest of the world. But this is something you can check out right now. I'm just going to give you a quick walkthrough of what this has as well, because I know a lot of you might not have seen this already. The concept of booklets.io is this. When you're learning design, there's a lot of resources on the internet. You can learn from blogs, you can learn from Medium articles, you can learn from Udemy, You can learn from Coursera. There's a lot of resources out there. But how do you discover new things that you might be interested in? Which is one thing that I realized was Udemy courses actually take a lot of time to go through. Same with Coursera courses. What I wanted to create was a place that aggregates design content from a lot of people. So you have that over here, and then something that gives you bite-sized learning, which is when you don't have the time to get into a 1 hour, 2 hour course, something that you can use to just quickly pick up on new things such that you can explore them later when you do have time. So Booklets.io, as it in its current version, this is where it stands right now. For beginners out there, I would say you should definitely check out a few categories here on the left side. Firstly, I would start with the fundamentals. This includes a little bit about getting started in design. It talks about a little bit about design theory. It talks a little bit about the broad areas of design that you might have, which is you have web design, you have UI design, you have a little bit of typography. So this should be a good way for you to get sort of dip your toes into what is the breadth available, right? Before you get into the depth. So like, let's say you want to learn typography, that's a big topic that you can handle, versus here you can sort of discover the breadth of typography, which is you can understand a lot of different concepts such that when you do eventually want to deep dive, you sort of know what the basics are already. So this is one category that I would definitely recommend you guys check out. For people joining in, hello everybody. I just want a quick roll call, quick attendance in the chats. Everybody drop a hello emoji. I want to see you guys drop a hello emoji right now. Two other categories that might be useful for you, especially if you're learning product design, is the UI design category and the UX design category. The UI design covers a little bit more practical aspects, which is how to use tools, how to choose fonts. You have a few things here about best stock photo websites. This should give you a good idea of UI design, the breadth of UI design out there. And then you have UX design, which talks a little bit more about the psychology of things. For example, let me get into this booklet right here. Good to see all the hello emojis. Hello everybody. Good evening to you. So here, this booklet, for example, this one is by Ayush Jangra. He talks about persuasion, about how to use persuasion and design to get your customers to do what you want on the website, which is you want to sort of give them the information, you want to get them to go through with your call to action. So this, for example, is a part of UX, right? This is something that you would be using. Similarly, I want you all to sort of just at your own pace, there's no hurry, explore this website. This will give you a good amount of discovery over topics that you should keep in mind for your future study sessions, for your future research. This can also be a good way for you to reference things quickly. So if you're designing something, you can even use the search bar here. So let's say you're designing something which is, you want to know dark mode iOS. What you will get here are human interface guidelines. It's a quick summary of that. This should be useful for you. So I'm really happy. Booklets.io, the beta is finally out. Feel free to use it. Please give me feedback on what you thought, what you really liked. What are some categories that you would also like to see? Of course, there might be a few bugs here and there. Feel free to send me screenshots. All of that can happen on Telegram. You can post it in the group. You can even DM me on Telegram. For those of you who are interested, this whole website is a bunch of pages. Right now, there's about 320 booklets with another 150 on the way just this week. All of this was made in Webflow. So this was done with almost zero code. The process for this was designing it in Figma, collecting all this content, reaching out to these authors, aggregating them, building up the LinkedIn and the Instagram to sort of get the word out, and then slowly releasing the beta. That was my launch process. I can definitely make more videos about how do you launch side projects. Let me know if in the comments if that's something that you would be interested in. That is something which is outside design, but I feel like a lot of us eventually will get to a point where we're going to do self-initiated projects, and we're going to want to know how do you do marketing, how do you build an audience. So let me know about that. Let me also show you a little bit what's been happening on social platforms for Booklets. This should give you an idea of how the launch, what I've been doing before the launch of the beta. So the LinkedIn account, this is where I'm sharing interesting booklets on LinkedIn. This is sort of to expose people to this concept of bite-sized learning. You can actually check that out here. I've been just posting a few. Some of these have been doing really well. We're at about 600 followers right now, and we're about 100, like about close to 2,000 actually. Hopefully by the end of the stream, I'm going to see this at 2K. So that's what we've been doing. Mayank has actually been helping me out. Mayank, you will find him on the group. You guys some of you might know who Mayank is. So that's in prep for Booklets. So that's it for Booklets. Let me now get back to 10K Designers. Let me talk a little bit about the backstory of designing this website. If you guys remember from one of our very first live streams, we have this Figma file here. If you guys want to actually see the Figma file for Booklets, for 10K Designers, jump into this right now. Let me share a URL. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in that web page. For those of you who want to check out how it was designed and actually see the file, you can jump in right now. This one here, this is the private file that I have, which has a little bit more explanation. This is the public file. You guys can check this out. So if you remember, this was something we had designed when we were doing, I think the live stream was called Basics of UI UX Design in Figma, where we just designed a random web page. We had talked about typography, we had talked about colors, style guides, we talked about spacing, we talked about columns. We have all of this here. But this was just something I just whipped up in the moment. I didn't actually plan what the website should be. Not just the different pages, but in the future, what are the things that I would want to add to the website. Now I've sort of done that, and the first version, this is what it looks like. You have that right here. So you just have a little bit of explorations. You can check that out here. I don't think this would be very interesting to you guys because it's just a very simple landing page. But the things that I had tried were, I was thinking about what the call to action should be, and I wasn't 100% sure of what it could be. I think what I want people to do when they come to this website is actually go to one of the other projects. And those projects are here. But I was also considering doing a newsletter where I send updates. But honestly, I have too many newsletters to manage. There's one on Booklets, there's one on UI sources, and I hardly send any. And I don't think a lot of people use newsletters anymore. So this was another variation that I tried for the header. This is what I ended up shipping out. I can show you a little bit of what that looks like in Webflow if anybody's interested. And I actually have an update to make to the site, so I'm going to do that right now. This is what the website looks like. This is Webflow. Um, you have a body section, you have this container, you have this grid of items, and then you have this container at the bottom. It's actually a super simple website. It only took me about I wouldn't say a few minutes. It took me at least an hour or two to design and then develop this. And this is of course responsive within Webflow. So these are your breakpoints. I just want to update this one thing actually. Change videos to live streams. So that is about it for the 10K Designers website. People in the comments, you guys are a little too quiet today. Let me know what do you want me to talk about in the next 15-20 minutes of this video. Anything that you want to dive into particularly, I can do a little bit of that. The next thing I have to talk about is I'm going to talk about the 10K platform. So if you guys saw this website, you might be thinking, what is the 10K platform exactly? Because I've sort of been teasing the idea, but we haven't really totally figured it out. So the 10K platform, I'm going to get into our brainstorming file right here. I see not a lot of you have jumped into Figma, probably because you're on mobile. But if you want, you can just scroll up. There is a Figma link. You can check that out. That should give you access to this file and you can jump in. The 3 new ideas that I added to this that I was thinking about, and I want to think a little bit more about it. These are the 3 new ideas. Firstly, I have a question for all of you, which is, how many of you are on Behance? How many of you are on Dribbble? If you're on any 2 of those platforms, just put a +1 in the chat. I want to see if people actively use it. And then I'm going to talk about what I think is a problem with Dribbble and Behance that can be solved. Are you guys happy with Behance and Dribbble? Is there something in Behance or Dribbble that you think can be improved or is missing? Now, one problem that I think that I have personally felt with Dribbble, I've been on Dribbble since maybe 2013. And one problem that I feel with it is that I hardly use it, which is I might come and browse, but for posting stuff, Dribbble has become this place where you only post your perfect shots, your 100% perfect shots. And it was supposed to be a place where you post your work in progress, but then I don't think anybody puts that out. Secondly, Pranav mentioned this in the chat as well, which is people don't put their thought process out. They only put the final output. So if your design process looks like this, where you started here, in 1 week you did this, in the second week you did this, this is what you changed, these are the reasons you changed it, and then week 3 you shipped. Out of all this process, Dribbble only has the final frame, which is the thing that you shipped, right? And there are a lot of learnings that can be had if you could figure out from people what their entire design process was. The reason it's so difficult to learn design through Dribbble or even Behance is people only put their best foot forward, which is they show projects that only look good, and even then they would put it on a on a perspective mockup which is just like this, right? And you're like, whoa, that looks fucking cool, but you're not learning too much from it. which is why I had a problem with design inspiration. And that was one of the original reasons why I had started UI sources, which is I wanted real apps, I wanted real designs, things that have actually been shipped and people are actually using. But beyond that, what I want to do is I want to involve more people. I want to actually tackle this problem with the 10K platform. One of the ways that I'm thinking about it, please give me a feedback on this, is this one right here, where this 10K platform, I want every single one of you in the chats right now and in Telegram to actually have a profile on 10K designers, which is 10kdesigners.com/archit jain, 10kdesigners.com/mayank, 10kdesigners.com/amit arora, /nikhil vadia, /ishan shah, /Jayant Walia, /Ajit Marshall. I want all of you guys to have your own profiles on 10K Designers, where this is sort of a representation of the work you've done. But over time, as the rest of the platform develops, which is, you have this stuff here, for example, you have interviews with designers, there are portfolio reviews, there are challenges where you're actually doing stuff on the platform. As a designer, you might also want to put out stuff to help other designers. You want to participate in these challenges. You want to help people in, let's say, the group chats. You want to share your learnings and not just your final outputs. This designer profile can be a really good way to do that. And one thing that I'm thinking for this is Behance and Dribbble, you only go and upload when your project is done. And a lot of times projects don't get done. Like, design is a continuous process. So people don't really keep their profiles up to date. Versus what I'm thinking about is something like GitHub, where this way that GitHub shows you activity, they show you streaks, something like that, which can be like a up-to-date version of your profile. And here you can connect with other designers. You can actually chat with them. You can collaborate on different things. You can showcase your work just like the other platforms, but you can also use this profile to apply for freelance projects, internships, and full-time designers and full-time jobs on the platform. This will have your projects, your progress in the community, your activity, which is how helpful are you, or how much have you engaged with the different challenges and the design things that you have. And a hybrid that shows your proof of work, which is, it shows that you as a designer have done some good work and you're a good designer. It shows your creativity. Now, of course, this is a very top level idea. Personally, I'm not even able to 100% visualize what a profile like this might look like. I'm not sure. But this is something to think about. I want you guys to also tell me ideas about this, whether in the comments right now or later on Telegram. Just thinking about how to create a really good version of that. Now, this of course is a much longer term project, but let's see. Designer profiles. I want to create something way better than Dribbble, way better than Behance, something that I would personally use. Like my Dribbble, if you want to see it, hasn't probably been updated in the past 1 or 2 years. Let's see. And Behance, I created a Behance and then like I didn't put up anything, so I eventually ended up deleting the account because I had nothing to I had nothing interesting there that wasn't already on Dribbble. But this is my Dribbble, for example, and last update was in 2018, so that was like 2 years ago almost. No, not 2 years, but one and a little bit. Yeah. The Unacademy one was way more active though. But even this, we would like wait for projects to get over before we were able to post them here, because you didn't want to post like half complete or something that wasn't shipped yet. Alright, so that's it for the designer profiles part. Another 2 ideas that I've been thinking about, I want your feedback on this as well. One is company profiles. This is something that I'm in talks with a lot of companies that are actually hiring designers. Startups as well as some bigger startups. I'm not going to take any names right now, but you're going to see them on the platform with future updates. Um, this company profile could be, now of course you have team profiles on Dribbble where it shows the Dribbble shots of designers from that company. But think about this, right? Most companies, if they want to showcase their design culture, Dribbble is probably not the best way. Like now, if you think of a team that has 5 designers, they're all doing different things online. They have, maybe they're writing articles, they have Twitter, they have LinkedIn, they're doing talks, they're doing physical events, they're doing workshops. Dribbble is like one small part of this whole overall activity that they're doing. If you think about the best design teams, the individual designers in that team are usually very active with the design community. Most of that is actually, a lot of that is actually not online, but some of that is. And Dribbble doesn't do a good enough job of showcasing that. So let's say tomorrow you want to join a company like, let's say if it was Unacademy, Swiggy, Zeta, Housing, one of the companies which are known for good design, that's okay. But what about a startup that maybe you don't know about, you haven't heard about, and maybe they're not on Dribbble, or maybe they are, but they don't really update it that much. You definitely do want to know what are the other designers on the team because you're going to be working with them. But you also want to understand how good they are, whether you're going to enjoy working with them. And for that, there can be company profiles where you can actually go and see the design culture of a company. So that is idea number 9 here. Drop a thumbs up, thumbs down. Actually, don't drop a thumbs down, drop a maybe in the chats if you think that's a good idea. This is something that I'm still thinking about, what would be the best way to do it. I already have some founders who are ready, who are saying, yo, here's a problem statement and let's go ahead and do this, right? Which is related to let's see, which one is that? Is this the problem statement from startups? I already have startups who want to hire and they're like, let's do a live stream thing where we figure that out. But I don't know for sure what's the best way to do it, which is why I've told them to wait a little bit while we figure it out. There was also a poll in the Telegram channel, the Telegram group, where I asked, would you guys be interested in participating in this? And most of you said yes. So that's actually a very positive sign. Thank you for that. Let's see how we can take this forward. College profiles. Now, let's move on to this one. I think you guys are going to find this very interesting. This is something I've thought less about, not as much as the other two. But I think it's an interesting angle nevertheless, which is a lot of good colleges have design culture. Like for example, Manipal has IECSE. IIT Roorkee has Design Studio and like a few more. And these clubs usually organize design related activities. When I was in college in Manipal, I didn't actually take part in any of this because I didn't know any designers. Like I literally knew 0 designers in Manipal. Although that has changed, and that did change towards my 3rd and 4th year. But I think in college, having a community of other designers, if you're in college by the way, having a community of other designers who are also learning with you, maybe are at the same or similar level, to work with them on projects, to share ideas, that could be really good. So far, all of this happens offline. I want to see if I can actually support what's happening offline. So for example, let's say Design Studio in Roorkee, so when I went for the Dribbble meetup, I think this was maybe last year, I actually saw a really active design culture where people actually work on case studies, they work on projects, and they're sort of getting ahead in a sense, which is a lot of the self-taught designers. Like this is not an official, I don't think they have an official design course, not sure. But there's a lot of people in a lot of branches just doing stuff. So firstly, I want to help support that in whatever way I can. And secondly, I want to see if I can bring some of that online, which is, let's say Design Studio as a group in Roorkee wants to showcase their designers and they want to maybe do, let's say, live streams only. They want to do live streams. They want to participate in some way. They want to organize an event where they want to invite other colleges to take part in this. They want to do maybe something related to internships where they want to apply or something like that. college profiles could possibly have this. And I'm also thinking it could have something like a group chat where you can actually just discuss stuff. Like that probably happens on Telegram and WhatsApp. But if it makes sense, it could be within this platform. So that is college profiles. This is going to be a little tricky. This is going to require some work. People in the chat, I actually want to know if any of you are in college right now. Can you just type the name of your college? Because I actually want to know what kind of college representation we have within 10K designers right now. So please drop your college name in the chat. The next thing I want to talk about, I think it's pretty much it for this video. I don't have anything else specifically to show you guys. If you have any suggestions, we can actually dive deep. We can do a small quick Q&A as a break right now. Let's do a small 10-minute Q&A break. Please ask me your questions. I'm actually seeing a lot of cool colleges here. DTU, MIT Manipal, MU, Jain, NIT Surat, Jain, LPU. That's really cool. Okay, so let's do Q&A now. I'm just going to open. The floor is open for Q&A. Please ask me your questions if you have any. Otherwise, we're going to get back into the live stream in just about 5 to 10 minutes. So all these ideas will likely be a part of this, which is the 10K platform. Ishan asks a very interesting question, which is meetup plans. I think that would be actually super interesting, which is we can actually, once the group gets maybe a little bigger, we can organize meetups. Starting with, it's going to be just in Bangalore, but eventually we can do that in a lot of other cities. But Ishan, right now I think the group is a little too small. I want to grow the Telegram group. I think it's maybe about 300 or 400 people right now. I want to take about 2-3 weeks more to sort of figure this out, which is the 10K platform. And meetups are definitely happening. Meetups are happening in your city soon. In addition to meetups, we might also do small workshops where we talk about a certain aspect. Although I would like to do that on live stream so more people can attend. But I think a physical aspect of it where you can meet people, that would be really cool. So that is happening at some point. What do I think about neomorphism? Neomorphism, you know what, I'm gonna call it a different name. Neomorphism to me is just bevel and emboss, right? Which is, if you look at that one shot that went really popular, the one neomorphism shot, it was this by this one dude. I think it's probably like this, which is like the soft UI, which looks like buttons. Like, dude, this is just basically skeuomorphism, but with a few extra steps. It's a trend which keeps going in circles, right? If I scroll all the way down to my dribble, I'm gonna find neomorphism shit, man. Like, look at this. Do you guys consider this neomorphism? Would you call that like it's soft with the shadows? Would you consider? No, maybe not this. Although I would say that button comes really close to neomorphism. This shit for sure is neomorphism. So are some parts of this. But the point is this, right? These are all trends. The problem with trends, this is neomorphism for sure, right? This was like really fun to design. This is mostly skeuomorphism. Now, the thing with trends, right, is whenever you're following trends come and go. But people who follow trends, like when you create something that is trend based, the mindset actually is that you for sure know that whatever you've designed is going to last lesser than a trend would. Which is, if you're doing something with neomorphism, you probably wouldn't use neomorphism if you were confident that your project is going to outlive the trend. So which is why you only see it in dribble shots, because no real apps have done it, because apps would last way longer than this trend would. Nobody wants to be using a trend that is dead, right? That's the biggest problem with trends, which is, back when I designed this, one of the trends was long shadows, right? A lot of you might remember that, which is doing stuff like this, right? You see that there. Now, long shadows as a trend, you don't see it anymore. But for a while on Dribble, everything, like literally everything had long shadows on it. Like stuff like this. Like all of this is actually more recent, but literally everything had a long shadow. Things that shouldn't have had long shadows had them. Even today, somebody is making a tutorial for long shadows. The same thing is going to happen with neomorphism. I expect maybe one app out of the hundreds of apps one popular app will likely do something that is slightly neomorphic. So for example, I think Waze already does neomorphism, and they've done it like for a while now. Right, but it's a trend, and personally, fuck trends. What you want to do is you want to do something that's everlasting. You want to do something that lives on, right? You don't want to do something which comes up and then dies. Ideally, we should all want to create projects that stay for a long time and help people for, as long as possible. So personally, I'm not a big fan of trends. Questions related to neomorphism: is it good for education genre? Dude, it doesn't matter. Neomorphism is a trend. Nobody gives a fuck except for designers. So yeah, I mean, if your goal is to be a good designer, then totally ignore the neomorphism trend. If your goal is to get likes on Dribble, go for it. I'm gonna take a few more questions here. How do I set up a payment system for freelance? You can actually use Stripe. It's available in India now. You can send invoices with Stripe. You can also send invoices with like Instamojo and stuff. If that answers your question. How do I choose colors for a project? Create a color palette. Usually your color palettes have I'm just going to give you a quick answer. Apologies for that. I can't dive deep into it right now. But color palettes, usually most apps have some common colors, which is whites, grays, blacks. Set that up first. Then you have your primary colors and you have your secondary colors. So for example, Waze's primary color is blue. And then they have different, while maintaining the same hue, they have different saturation and brightness to generate a palette. Start with your primary, start with the secondary, and slowly start expanding your palette and then start applying it. Once you have colors, the way you verify if it works. Now I can show you an example from the 10K Designers website. This was my color palette. Right. And the way I did this was just I started with white, gray, and black. This purple is something I use a lot. This is a modified purple. And then I just tried to find colors that would sort of go well together. And then I tried them out. And eventually this is what I ended up using back here for this gradient. So if you see this, these colors, they come from the color palette. That's the short answer. Diksha says, I would like to see more on handoffs to development team. Definitely. That is something I haven't covered yet, and I will do it. Arpan asks, what should a product style guide consist of? At a very broad level, these are the things. You have your colors. You have your typography. Let me show you a real example. So this, for example, right? So you have your colors. You have your grid system. So actually you can just make a list of this. I'll do that right now. What should a style guide consist of? So you normally start with atomic elements, which is the smallest parts, and then you grow bigger. So once you have colors and typography, you can do elements like buttons, for example. Once you have buttons, you can do elements like cards. Once you have cards, you can do pages, right? So you start small. And the smallest elements that make up a style guide would be colors, typography, spacing, your grid and layout, I'm going to call it. Roughly, I think that covers it. Once you have this, you start with other elements, which are maybe your smallest elements, which are buttons, headings, paragraphs. You have buttons, you can have, like primary buttons, you can have secondary buttons. You have headings, paragraphs. Headings can be H1, H2, and so on. This would probably get covered under your typography. And then you would have more elements like cards, banners, nav bars, app bars, footers, sections, and so on. That's the short answer. Udit asks, how do I join the group? Udit, the group is on Telegram. It's not on WhatsApp. You can see the link right here. It's t.me/abnux. Abhishek asks, is it possible to bypass entry-level roles and land a senior role directly? How much can you expect to be paid? I'm going to answer the first part of that question, which is most likely not, especially if there are designers at that company already. If it's a very early stage startup, it's likely that they might give you a senior role, which is they might give you a lot of responsibility. But eventually when they do end up hiring more designers, that will sort of adjust. How much can you expect to be paid? Roughly, I can tell you, this will actually start a lot of questions, and it's probably a good topic for another video. But entry-level designers get paid in India. I've seen 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, up to 6 lakhs, 7 lakhs. If you're from design school, maybe you can jump straight to 12. If you're really good and you know how to sell yourself, you can also jump to 12. Within a few years, you can go to 15, 20. Within 5 years, you can go to 20, 25. Although on the higher end of that, the gaps increase. Like you can go all the way up to crores. But the way you do that is not through salary. You do that through equity and ESOPs. As the head of design team, Pranav asks this question, what do you value most in other designers? I can tell you roughly, which is I want to work with designers who are interested in their craft, right? As do most really good designers, which is if you're a designer who is constantly learning, probably has an active online presence, which signals that you constantly want to learn more and put yourself out there. That's probably a good signal. Beyond that, what I look for are hard skills, which is your actual design. I look at the projects you've done, how well you've performed. I also look at your persuasion and communication skills, which is if I ask you a question, can you give me a straight answer? Or do you go like this and then tell me the answer, right? Communication is a very important skill. Persuasion is a very important skill, which is You need to be able to convince people of your decisions to be a really good designer. Or ideas that you have, you need to be able to communicate them very clearly, because if I don't understand what you're talking about, the effectiveness of your idea sort of reduces. So presentation in the terms of visual as well as communication is really important. How long will a front-end developer take to become a good UI UX designer? This is a question by Ali. I would say on the longer term, maybe 3 months, but within 2 weeks of learning UI UX design through booklets as well as through the YouTube channel, you can find them on 10kdesigners.com. You can expect to start shipping stuff within the first 2 weeks, which is learning Figma only takes you a few hours, but let's say that takes you a day or a few days to get comfortable with it. By week 2, you should be able to make screens. Even if they're not good, you can at least put the concept in your head out there. And then over the weeks, the most important skill becomes how do you close feedback loops, which is once you've designed something, how do you know what you can do to take it to the next level, and then to the next level, and then to the next level. And closing those feedback loops, that's what the Telegram group is for. A lot of the 10K platform will have that as well. And a lot of it is building your design intuition. If you want to know more about that, there's a video on the YouTube channel on how to build design intuition and how to develop an eye for good design. Nishant asks, books for visual design. Nishant, I actually have not read any visual design books specifically. The reason for that probably is that books are probably not the best way to talk about visual concepts. The internet is way better for that. The books that I have read are usually around the meta parts of design, which is not exactly design, but the business of design or the process of design, the mindset involved, and the things around it. So visual design, I actually don't have any book recommendations. If you do want to see some design books that I like, you can check out the book summaries tab on Booklets. Now, of course, these are summaries. If you like any of these, you should definitely go and read the full book. But this should give you an idea. One of my favorites is actually Steal Like an Artist. Beyond that, Creativity Inc. is really good. Influence is actually the book, the number one book that I would suggest for anybody who has a problem with convincing people, which is, are you sometimes not able to get your point across? Are you sometimes not able to convince your teammates, your clients, developers on your team? The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, amazing book. You should definitely check this out. It just talks about, I think, a few principles, maybe six principles. You can start applying these to your life. Some more questions. Abid Ali asks, is Figma okay to manage the social media? Yes, 100%. What I can show you is how we manage the social media for booklets. All of these things, like these covers, they're all made in Figma. In fact, even the thumbnails for my YouTube videos are all made in Figma. Check these out right here. What Gaurish asks, what podcasts do you listen to? It's actually an interesting question because there's quite a few of them. I'm going to name maybe 2 to 5. Number 1, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, I don't listen to all the episodes, but I do listen to the ones from really interesting people. Number 2, there's this podcast called Anatomy of Next, which is a podcast about the future. Amazing podcast. Like, dude, Anatomy of Next had this one series of episodes about if we realistically wanted to go to Mars, what are the different problems we would have to solve, right? As a designer, that was such a mind-blowing episode because they talk about individual subsystems and the way it all connects. Like one part of that, for example, is, let's say you wanted to reach Mars, right? It takes you maybe a few years to reach there. Your body would get fucked up on the way, which is, if you don't move around, your muscles will atrophy. There's different gravity. And beyond Mars, let's say you want to travel to a different galaxy. If you want to get there for, it takes 1,000 years to get there, or a few light years to get there. How would we realistically do it as a design problem? And then what they do is they talk to experts to figure that out. So some of the things they discussed were, if we can actually, let's say, figure out a way to put the human body in hibernation mode, which is a lot of mammals like bears and squirrels actually go into hibernation. And what they do then is they lower their body's temperature. They're usually inside snow, so like in caves or buried under the ground, where it's really, really cold. And yet they are able to come out of it alive once it's done. So technically, we could unlock the genes required for hibernation in humans. So, stuff like that is very interesting to listen to. Across the entire series, that I think this was one of the seasons, each episode was a different part of this. For example, they talked about how we can use VR to actually construct stuff on Mars, which is if you want to start figuring out on Mars how, let's say, where do you drop a floor plan and things like that. Today there are VR tools to, for example, stand in a room that's not been constructed and check it out. Things like that of how VR can really be used in construction and in different use cases that might be applicable to Mars. That was really interesting. So number 2 was Anatomy of Next. Number 3, I also listened to this podcast called Bulletproof Radio. This is by this dude, Dave Asprey. Super smart guy. I'm actually going to open up some of these links here so you can check them out. Anatomy of Next. Joe Rogan, I'm sure all of you know Joe Rogan. What was I saying? Bulletproof. So I would say these are maybe top 3. Although, usually I only listen to like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, 2 or 3 podcasts in a month. So I'm actually not a big podcast listener. Dave Asprey's podcast. So let me show you Anatomy of Next first. So check this out, right? These were some of the things they've talked about. So how do you go interstellar? How do you have sex in space? Part 1 and 2. Can humanity exist on multiple planes? Which is, if this real life that we're living in is one plane, when we live in VR, will that be like a second plane that people are living in? What are modifications needed for our body? It's actually a really good design as well. I actually haven't seen this website before. How do you build oceans? Ecology? How would you die in outer space? I don't think I've read this one. Rockets. Yeah, so this is a really good one. Bulletproof Radio. This is by Dave Asprey. This is about, I would say at a broad level, it's a health podcast. But it's health plus science for a term called biohacking, which is if you think of your body as a system that can be improved, maintained, and upgraded, what are the different things, technology that you have available right now to upgrade your body, right? This is actually a very new field. I mean, in India, of course, but the concept of nootropics, for example, you have cryotherapy, you have a lot of these technology that exist. And usually the way you would do this is you would figure out your own stack, which is you would figure out things that work for you. You would probably get your own... okay, I'm not going to talk too much about this. If that's something that interests you, you can check this out. So those are the top 3 podcasts. There's a few more, but maybe I'll talk about that in a different time. Let's see, some more questions. Okay, I'm going to stop questions for now. We're going to spend a few more minutes on the live stream. We're closing up to the 1 hour mark. So we're going to end the live stream in about, let's say, 10 minutes. Roughly, I've covered what I needed to. Let me talk a little bit about this format, right? You see right, in that live stream, you see, it says weekly catch-up number 1. That's because this is number 1 of an upcoming series of catch-ups where we're going to be talking about what's happening in the 10K design community. In the next live stream, one of the things I'm also going to be talking about in maybe these episodes or maybe on other episodes is I'm going to be talking about projects and portfolios from you guys, which is projects that you share in the Telegram group. I'm going to be talking about them, whether it's to critique them or just showcase them. I want to cover what's happening in the design community. I want this to be active, and then I want to talk to other people about the things happening in our community so that we can grow it. So one of the things that I'm going to be talking about in one of the upcoming live streams was a project shared by Prem, which is reimagining the UX of Uber Eats. So the live stream for this is going to happen this week. Let's say Wednesday, but I'm going to confirm that in the Telegram group soon. So this should be an interesting video. One of the feedbacks that I got, I think this was from Prashant. Prashant had mentioned about how the last time we did this, we'd gone too much in breadth. Like we'd covered 3 projects in, I think, 90 minutes. So just like 20 or 30 minutes per project. So for this video, I'm going to talk only about this project, which is going to be maybe a 30 to 45 minute episode where we're going to be talking about, going to be talking to Prem in a live video. He's going to be walking us through how he did this Uber Eats redesign for his portfolio. So what you can expect to learn from this is how to structure case studies, how to think about problem statements, and then actually get the inside story of what it's like to design one of these. Because on this platform, I don't just want to talk to people who are really experienced and super experienced in design. I want to also showcase people who are up and coming, who are still learning, who are trying out interesting things. Because I feel like there's as much to learn from beginners and intermediates as there is from experts. And it's also something about how I think when you have a beginner's mindset, which is when you're open to learning anything, you probably, I don't know the best way to say this, but as an expert, sometimes you can forget about certain things that beginners might have a lot. So for example, when I started design, there were certain things that I really wanted to know more about, but the experts weren't talking about it because they didn't consider that a big enough problem, right? So as part of the learning, I want to showcase these projects from up and coming designers. So we're going to be talking about this in the next live stream. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Watch out for that. So these weekly catch-ups, I'm actually looking forward to these. Should be super fun. All right, guys, 3 minutes left for this live stream. Let me see if there's any questions that I've missed out. How have I customized my Chrome? It's just it's a plugin called Momentum, and it's a theme. Can I be a part-time UI UX freelancer? Yes, you can. What are some good projects for making my portfolio stand out? You should actually go through the Telegram group. That we had a long discussion about this. You can just ping me or somebody in the group and I'll link you to that conversation. But basically what we talked about was most people talk about hypothetical projects. A good idea is to talk about real world problems or apps that already exist and try to optimize the UX. Because as somebody who is hiring, I would always want to see interesting projects. I would always want to see interesting problems being tackled rather than really boring problems, right? To be 100% honest. So try to think of interesting problems and try to solve those. This, for example, the Uber Eats case study is a really good example of a project that you can take to stand out because number one, it takes an app that already exists, Uber Eats. What Prem has done is he's actually recreated all the screens in Figma, which is a great way for you to practice and figure out the style guide of an app like this. That'll give you a lot of learning. And the next part of this is he's implemented optimizations based on problems that he has observed while using the app, which is really great because problems that you face in your real life, you would probably have a unique perspective to them. So those are some of my tips to pick projects for your portfolio. So folks, that's going to be it for this case study. A small recap of what we've discussed. We talked about the brainstorming ideas for the 10K platform. If you want to check out and give me suggestions, please use the comment feature on Figma. The link, I'm going to share it in the chat once more, but you'll also find it in the group description after the video is uploaded. I'll share that right here. As you can see, there's already a ton of comments here. There's a lot of interesting ideas being shared. I would love to see more of this. So please jump in. Give me feedback, especially on these 3 new ideas, which is number 8, designer profiles, number 9, company profiles, and 10, college profiles. If you have any ideas, please share them here or DM in or post it in the group on Telegram. We talked about that. We talked about the 10K platform. The products on the platform right now, the main platform is still upcoming. We're brainstorming ideas for it. Booklets.io has moved from secret beta to public beta. Please share it with your friends. Feel free to browse it. It's going to be a good resource for you to learn topics. The YouTube channel has been active. We're going to do a lot more live streams now. UI sources, I'm actually working on a redesign of UI sources. It's going to be a big change, but it's probably only going to happen in March. So I'll talk about that like way later. That's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you all in the Telegram group right after this. People who haven't joined, it's t.me/abnux. Have a great evening. Have a great week ahead. And let's continue the conversation today and for the week ahead on Telegram. Good night. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.